I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting live 6 days a week at 5 p.m. That's Monday through Saturday. Yes. A lot of big news with Doug Ford, David Eby, and the rest of the, I would say, Captain Canada Avengers, I guess.
I can't even say what I wanted to say because we're not... We need to wait 10 minutes before we can use that word on YouTube. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. It is what helps us out the most. Also, we try to read most of your comments live after each segment. And if you want your comment read for sure, you can always super chat us. That actually really helps us out as well. And we pause the whole show for those. We also have memberships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we got, well, I see one comment. Michael, is that?
Two. Glenn Gunn says, good evening, Nat and Guy. Good evening. And says, Ford has the worst false smile in history. All I see is corruption.
Yeah.
Same here.
I was making the thumbnail for today. I was trying to put a MAGA hat on his fake smile, and the AI kept turning Doug Ford into Donald Trump.
No, I
had a lot of problems making the thumbnail today. It didn't come out very good either, but
he looks a little uncanny valley, but he is a little uncanny valley anyways. So
one day he's got a MAGA hat on, the next day it's a Canadian Liberal hat, then a conservative hat. I mean, Doug Ford wears all the hats, I guess.
He has an identity crisis. Lyle Norman says, hit the like button. Thank you so much. And yes, please do. Again, it does help spread out the live for anybody that might be interested. So thank you. Nick McConnell, hi, thank you for being here, says they are definitely not MAGA. They are deep state puppets. 72 countries had their elections stolen. I have connections high in MAGA. Globalists are going to fail. Nothing can stop what's coming.
Yeah, and that's what it really looks like. And a lot of people in the United States are actually trying to push back on Trump, especially in the content creator space. I like what Trump's doing. And on a global basis, man, he has not only made inroads, he has almost crushed the globalists. If we can get a J.D. Vance in there after Donald Trump, I think that's going to be the end of this global liberal propaganda we've been living under for the last, 40 years, I guess?
It sounds more, 50. It's also interesting that we used to talk a lot about geopolitics, and we used to, at least myself, I started noticing that they were going really hard against Trump, and there was no real reasoning behind it. Reasoning might have now started to come up, but we'll talk about it in a bit. And Silverfeet says, hi, hello, and thank you for being here. And Rage Against Machine says, Republic of Alberta, LFG, or let's effing go. That's how I have to say it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. And if you guys haven't seen it, I was just starting to watch the Nadine Wellwood interview with Bruce Party, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Sporty Bruce Party.
Yeah, they're really just cutting through the fat and getting right down to the meat and potatoes with Danielle Smith in that conversation, which I really appreciated.
And also kind of confirming once again, because Bruce Party has been saying it over and over again, that the fact that she continues to say that she couldn't put the actual binding question on this next referendum just legally makes no sense either, because what was restricted was a citizen initiative question, not the one that she as a government could put forth. But it just goes to prove that there's more of an uphill climb, but that's okay. We are climbing.
Okay, let's get into breaking news, and we're going to start with Doug Ford, but we got some David Eby in there as well. It's all kind of revolving around the USMCA.
And they're massive failures. So yeah, let's go to breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And yes, as you mentioned, Scott Robertson says, quote, Will Blitz are asking, so would your Fortress America agreement replace a USMCA? And Doug Ford says, no, it's just a little brochure right here.
And it's really good that we got all this USMCA news in the breaking news segment, because this is really the reason why we don't want to stay connected to Canada. Alberta could technically save all of Canada, or at least Western Canada, if they would just get behind Alberta independence. We wouldn't have to wait 3 years for a potential Poilievre victory, which may never actually come. If we pressured the federal government as citizens through the Alberta independence movement, potentially Saskatchewan and BC as well, just showing that there is mass support for independence, we could break the federal government down and get major concessions. And that's what this October 19th vote is about. It's not a binding referendum. This is a way to apply pressure to the federal government.
Doug Ford. Premier Ford, thanks very much for coming in. You're smiling. It's a pretty tense time in U.S.-Canadian relations right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in. And we're down here promoting something called Fortress North America.
What is Fortress North America?
Well, Fortress North America is about encouraging people to invest more in both countries. And when they invest more, we're going to see more production, more jobs, lower costs. That's what we need to focus on. We have two of the greatest countries in the entire world. And when we work together, there's nothing that can stop us. China can't stop us, and we need to keep moving forward.
So would your Fortress America agreement replace the USMCA?
No, it's just a little brochure right here. If anyone reaches out to our Ontario government or they go online, they'll be able to see what we put together. It doesn't replace the USMCA. It's just a message for the American people.
Doug Ford, from your Ford.
My God,
Don't
I
think they
mean,
wanna listen to that
he
message.
just flip flops like a fish or a piece of bacon in a frying pan.
I think the bacon analogy is a lot more apt.
Oh my God. But let's go right into, this Fortress North America, this is his new pitch line to Americans. And he keeps saying, oh, I love Americans. I love this and I love that. This little speech that he's given isn't going to do much. Canada is in a really bad spot. We showed the clip from Trump yesterday, and Trump's talking about going so far as to cancel the USMCA. I thought he was going to put it on a year-to-year review, which would build in confidence in Canadian companies and have them move to the United States. But he's talking about going all the way and actually canceling the agreement.
Interestingly, do we all remember that ad that Doug Ford made right before the elections? Because now he's sounding like the complete opposite. Mark Nixon says, quote, wow, Doug Ford meeting with the U.S. canceled, rumored to be because Trump hates Doug Ford. Ford saying that if that's the case, so be it.
It's our understanding that the White House had voiced a lot of concerns and frustrations about the fact that you were holding an event with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that was then canceled in D.C. What do you make of the fact that the White House, the U.S. administration, seems to have such a deep dislike for you? And do you think that your interventions make any difference?
Well, you know something, I just love the American people. I love the U.S. I've said it 1,000 times, no matter what broadcast I'm on. The reception I get when I go down there is second to none. If the president feels, for one reason or another, he made his comments to the chamber, I can tell you, Ross Perot Jr., he's a class act, and we'll reschedule it at a later date. But you're going to have to ask the chamber if that's the case. Oh, sure. Yes.
Can I just add something? If those rumors that President Trump forced the chamber to cancel the meeting are true, then I think Premier Ford should be wearing that as a badge of honor. I think the fact that he stood up, faced truth to power, I think that's standing up for Canada, standing up for Ontario, and I think that's what this is all about.
Thank you. Is that what happened, Premier? Is it your
You
understanding?
can pause it for a quick second. And he's on it. I want to keep watching this. He's on an ass kissing tour right now. But right after he does his ass kissing, his little hype man jumps in there and tries to undo everything. You can't talk about both sides of your mouths. The Americans aren't going to want to do business with somebody they're uncertain with. 1 minute you're anti-MAGA, the next minute you're pro the American people. You have a little hype man jumping up on stage, barking like a chihuahua here.
The president himself that made this intervention?
If that's the case, so be it. I know I have an incredible relationship we've built with Ross Perot Jr. He's a gentleman. He's a leader. And we'll have another time to get together. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. But you're going to have to ask the chamber that. I don't know that 100%. But anyways, we'll see how we move forward. But
He keeps bringing up Ross Perot Jr. like he's going to run for president or he's a major political figure. His father was. He is not. That's the first time I heard his name mentioned in years. The fact that he's trying to build relationships with non-politically relevant individuals in the States isn't going to help the USMCA.
Because they're the only ones that listen to him or answer his calls. Again, his meeting got canceled because Trump does remember about that little ad that Doug Ford and the whole campaign that was being also run by the conservative Doug Ford.
Well, I have some clips for tomorrow on how the mainstream media is kind of pitching this. And they're straight out saying, oh, we just have to wait 6 months. The midterms are coming up and Trump is going to lose everything. I completely disagree with that. I think Trump has a few aces up his sleeve. And even in the point he's at right now, he looks like he may stay the same or lose one seat. But if something major happens between now and then, he could potentially win both the House and the Senate and be in a fantastic position. If that's their big game plan, is they're going to roll into the midterms, Trump is going to lose, my money would actually be on Trump, not on the Canadian government there.
I mean, we've been saying for the last year that with this renegotiation coming up, that while Mexico was having 2, 3, 4 meetings to continue the talks about the USMCA or their own bilateral trade deal with the US, Canada was always iced out, and it was never invited to the table, and they continued to say, oh, we're starting to have talks about having negotiations, not even the negotiations themselves.
Well, let's go into the David Eby clip, but after that one, it's kind of going to harken back to what you just said there.
David Eby or Eeyore says, the sequel to The Art of the Deal is pretty lame. If Donald Trump doesn't want to renegotiate the USMCA, then he should respect the agreement instead of attacking Canadian industries and workers.
And we used to live right there. That used to be our view. We used to see these ships every day.
That was the one nice part about it.
A bit bizarre. If the president doesn't want to renegotiate CUSMA, then what are we doing? Like, let's just get on with business. Let's have both sides respect the agreement, and let's continue with the existing CUSMA agreement. To be blunt, this sequel to The Art of the Deal is pretty lame. A bit bizarre.
Okay, and David
Because you
Eby,
never read it, clearly.
David Eby doesn't understand what's going on. He thinks because there's no guarantee that he's going to cancel it, and he assumes if it doesn't get canceled, everything's going to stay the same. Let's just keep it the same. That's not how it works. No. Actually, if he doesn't cancel it, best case scenario, he's going to go to a year-on-year review, which that is going to build massive inconfidence in Canadian companies and manufacturing. They are most likely going to move their headquarters to the United States and their manufacturing lines to the United States as well if it stays on a year-to-year review, because they want certainty, not uncertainty, and especially because Trump has built a lot of incentives into the American economy right now for manufacturing to move there.
And investment just doesn't make sense if, again, you're on a year-to-year review basis. So again, industry once again fleeing away from Canada.
Well, plus all the regulations on top of that. The Canadian government is not doing themselves any favors. They're really in a place where they're in tough negotiations for USMCA. They should be lowering the regulations until they have some security with a final deal there.
Kirk Lumimov says, quote, interesting. It turns out the U.S. has invited Canada to expand its cooperation, but hasn't heard back yet on what it wants to do. U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, says, we've been invited to Canada to be a partner in expanding and growing all of the areas that we cooperate in today, expanding parts of our economy, agriculture, blah, blah, blah.
Canada's not even in official negotiations with the United States, and this is very concerning because Mexico is actually in the final stages. They're in what you call talks actual negotiations, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially considering Carney had promised a deal a long time ago. This was supposed to be his main priority. It looks like he's saying one thing to the Canadian public, and behind the scenes, he's actually doing nothing because he probably wants to realign the Canadian economy with China, and that seems to be the plays that he's going for more and more these days.
We've invited Canada to be a partner in expanding and growing all of the areas that we cooperate in today. Expanding parts of our economy, agriculture, energy, transportation, yes, even autos, steel, aluminum, and defense. Look forward to going through the negotiations on some of the issues that we're talking about. We're waiting for Canada to respond. But once Canada clearly outlines its direction and what it wants from the negotiations, I think that we can do some great things together. We've invited Canada.
And the problem here is America has laid out a Western hemispheric strategy, and it's going in the direct opposite direction of progressive liberal values. And Mark Carney doesn't like that. So he doesn't want to align with the United States, even though the United States has been reaching out to him on almost every level, it sounds like.
True. But now let's go to your comments and then into Alberta Stay Free. Rage Against Machine says Danny is going to be on the Fringe tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. I'm going to definitely be watching that. Clear the schedule for that one.
Yeah, Glenn Gunn says that should be good. Then Glenn also says that interview was a joke. Not sure which one he means. Well, I think one of the ones we played. The Doug Ford one with Wolf Blitzer. With
the Wolf.
Rage Against Machine says DF for Doug Ford is a POS. He's a Federalist washer. I'm going to have to say it like that.
And the problem here is... It's looking like there has been multiple plans kind of put in motion to oust Pierre Poilievre. Now, some of them have been headed off at the pass. They were supposed to have a bunch of hit pieces come out. I think they put those on pause because the independent conservative media kind of forewarned about what was happening with Corey Tonight, I believe, was the individual that is Doug Ford's campaign manager that was supposed to put a lot of those hit pieces out. But if they manage to have a vote of inconfidence with Pierre Poilievre at any time, it's going to be Jason Kenney or Doug Ford, and it's going to be Mark Carney installing those two as the conservative leader. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. At least with Pierre Poilievre, you have somebody doing some pushback on the federal government.
True. Not working in conjunction with. Glenn Gunn says, also known as a liberal, says bacon does not leave a bad taste. Doug Ford does. Rage Against Machine says, OMG, unbelievable. Does he think we have forgotten he opposed the USA his whole term and right before the elections too? Exactly.
And he continues to do it with the policies in Ottawa right now.
Glenn Gunn says, Ducky, you should be friends with Mike Myers, another American. And Todd says, and exactly, Todd, Canada is about to be isolated more than it already is and has isolated itself while it connects itself to the communist regime that is China.
Yeah, it's important to pay attention to, especially what's going on in the USMCA, because that's going to dictate the economic future of Canada. And because we're trying to go towards independence in Alberta, we can actually, especially with Keith Wilson's white papers, we're going to be able to project a real economic future for Alberta if we can get away from Canada. What Canada is projecting, on the other hand, is an economic cliff.
Todd says, out in the middle of nowhere with zero trade deals with anyone. That's what Canada continues to be now.
Well, I think they got 47,000 Chinese cars coming into the country, and they're trying to tout that like a victory. It's completely the opposite.
Langon says, Canada is very strong with 36% immigrants. And Todd says, hope y'all Canadians tend a good garden. Now let me read a few more. Philip Vespa says, I can't believe how expensive the World Cup is in Mexico. Their ticket prices are comparable to Canada, and locals don't seem to be happy. Globalist organizations like FIFA need a reckoning. Yes, today was the first match, and the little celebration beforehand. It's chaos. The city is complete chaos.
Well,
we won't get too much into it, but we were just comparing ticket prices. And yeah, in Mexico, ticket prices converted to Canadian dollars are about $1,500.
Yeah,
for the lowest tier.
Yeah, that's a lot cheaper than even Toronto. Toronto, the lowest price ticket was $600. But that being said, the Toronto government, the Chinese lady that's running Toronto, mayor, Olivia Chow, bought 9,000 tickets and resold them in order to put money back into the coffers of Toronto. That seems absolutely ridiculous to me and should be illegal.
Aside from trying to bring in a literal person with known terrorist ties that the U.S. said no to, a referee.
Congratulations to Mexico. They won 2-0 against South Africa.
Yeah, well, I mean, we knew that was kind of going to happen. But no, Mexican ticket prices are 1,500 Canadian dollars. The cheapest one in Canada is 600 in Toronto.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
So Mexico is way more expensive, which is insane.
Well, technically not. I don't want to go too much into it, but the original sale was 600. They're obviously completely sold out. So the retail tickets are going for about 2,000. So they're actually cheaper here, but who can afford $1,500?
Pete Griswold says USMCA is huge, especially when we keep funding Ukraine.
USMCA is absolutely huge, and the values that go along with it is huge. And it seems like a lot of these Western countries are trying to reject the United States because of the values that they hold, that they've always held of free speech and other things. Carney wants to bring in more censorship. We got a ton of news about these censorship bills coming into effect, how they want to ban 16-year-olds from online, yet they're more than welcome to decide if they need surgery for transition or anything else like that. They can also go into safe injection sites at 16 years old. But they can't go on Facebook.
No, Pete also says, oh, you like Crown Royal again? Ford, the Canadian company, he made move to the US. Exactly. And John B says, it won't be renegotiated. It will be canceled. Canada is doomed. Prime Minister Clown is a doofus. I wanted to read those all in sequence. But yes, exactly.
And to be honest with you, I prefer it to just be canceled at this point rather than just going on a 2-year review. That's going to slowly hollow out the Canadian economy. If he pulls out of the USMCA, I'm not going to say it's going to guarantee Alberta independence, but it's going to be a massive influx for us. And I think we're going to get a lot of support from across the board in other provinces as well.
But now let's go into Alberta Stay Free and continue listing reasons for Alberta to become its own independent nation that, in this case, could be negotiating with the U.S. on much better terms with much better deals for both countries. So let's go. And let's start with the Western Standard. It says, quote, if Alberta independence is such a bad idea, why not debate it? Lukaszik's refusal to engage may say more than any debate ever could, and it won't stop Albertans from asking what comes next.
Yeah, and we talked about this the other day, but this update piece here is absolutely fantastic. And this could be the winning strategy if people will realize it and we grab a hold of it. If we keep challenging people like Lukaszik, like Danielle Smith, like Pierre Poilievre, like the heavy hitters on the nationalist side, keep making public challenges and have venues that are kind to both sides, I guess you would say. But after they refuse to actually debate, we need to make more videos like this.
Yes.
Was I surprised when Forever Canadian public spokesman Thomas Lukaszik refused to debate Derek Fildebrandt? Absolutely not. When pressed on his core arguments for why Alberta should simply content themselves with the current federal status quo, his response was, I don't have to argue why we should stay in Canada. That statement alone tells us all we need to know. At a moment when Alberta is engaged in the most serious constitutional discussion in generations, the public face of one of Alberta's leading federalist organizations apparently believes that the case for remaining in Confederation is so self-evident that it doesn't even require a defense. The sheer blinding complacency of that position is breathtaking, but it clearly defines the attitude of the status quo federalists. It is precisely the attitude that has fueled Alberta's growing dissatisfaction with Confederation.
And again, whatever response they have other than, yes, I'll debate you, we can make hit pieces like this, and it's going to set off red flags in people's minds. Why don't they want to debate? Why don't they want to answer the questions? They say they have all the answers. Well, why don't we just have both sides have it out at this point?
The fundamental problem with Lukaszik's approach is that he does not appear to understand the underlying frustrations that are driving the movement he is fighting so desperately to stop. To him, the desire for greater sovereignty appears to be little more than an emotional reaction. Albertans are upset. Albertans are confused. Albertans have been misled by Danielle Smith, the alternative media, or social media. What is missing from that analysis is any serious attempt to engage with the actual grievances being raised. Albertans are discussing independence because they have watched Ottawa obstruct energy development, expand federal intrusion into provincial jurisdiction, and implement policies that disproportionately target Alberta's largest industry. When looking at Canada, Albertans see fundamental inequalities in the state of Confederation, an unfair federal tax and transfer system that bleeds Albertans dry to pay for social services in the rest of the country, all the while being...
Okay, and you can leave it there, but this is absolutely fantastic. We had the initial challenge, then we had the decline, and then we can hit them back saying that they don't want to debate. If they truly believe Alberta is better inside of Canada, then they would want to show the world that, but they want to hide behind false words and say, I don't even need to debate this issue. It's already a closed issue. Obviously, it's not a closed issue because we're going to go to a non-binding referendum on October 19th, and who knows what's going to happen after that. Hopefully, we can shorten that timeline and get that binding referendum within 6 to 12 months.
And again, also being able to highlight it and make it into a bigger and bigger thing, and then put it on social media and saying, like, why don't they want to debate? What is it that they're so scared of? And just continuing to highlight that so it reaches those that might be on the fence still or not sure which way to go. Well, this side is trying to give you all the reasons for Alberta to become independent. The other one is just trying to fearmonger you, scare you, and tell you, no, we don't even have to tell you why you should stay, just stay. Farm Geek says
they're willing to tell you why you should stay only when it's in an ad or it's a pre-canned speech or they're really reading off a teleprompter. They don't want to have any back and forth. They don't want to actually be challenged because their arguments absolutely crumble under the microscope. We already seen Jason Kenney, which was the only one willing to step up to the debate sphere, and he absolutely fell apart when he was challenged with Keith Wilson. So much so they didn't want to have the video come out of the first debate.
Exactly. But Farm Geek says, quote, for decades, Alberta has tried to reform within Canada, the Fireball Letter, the Fair Deal Panel, the Equalization Referendum, and more. So when people say lead, not leave, it's fair to ask whether they've already been trying that for generations. Literally since its inception, Alberta has been trying to leave because that was not the deal that they were going to sign up for.
Hey, Alberta. I've been hearing a phrase a lot lately. Lead, not leave. And honestly, I understand why that sounds appealing. Most people don't want division. They'd rather fix something than walk away from it. But can I ask you something? What if we've been trying to fix it for a very long time? I'm a farmer and a teacher, so I tend to look at history. If something isn't working, I want to know whether we actually tried another approach, maybe multiple approaches. When people say Alberta should just keep working within Canada, lock arms, I think it's worth asking what that has looked like over the last century. So let's go back. We fought for control of our own natural resources before finally gaining them in 1930. Jump ahead in the early 2000s, the Firewall Letter proposed ways for Alberta to have more control over things like pensions, policing, taxation, while remaining in Canada. More recently, there was the Fair Deal Panel, where thousands of Albertans shared ideas for strengthening Alberta's place within Confederation instead of leaving it. In 2021, over 62% of voters supported removing the principle of equalization from the Constitution. That was a democratic way of saying many Albertans wanted change. Then came the Alberta Sovereignty Act, another attempt to push for more provincial autonomy while staying in Canada. Whether you agreed with every one of those ideas isn't really the point. The point is that Alberta hasn't spent decades demanding independence. We've spent decades trying to negotiate a better deal inside Canada. Some people believe we should keep trying, and I respect that. But I also understand why others are beginning to ask how many times you can knock on the same door before you wonder if there's another path. This isn't about anger. It isn't about rejecting Canada or forgetting our shared history. It's about honestly looking at our own history and asking whether just keep trying is actually a new strategy or simply the same strategy we've been following for generations. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But I think Alberta deserves an honest conversation about what we've tried, where it's led us, and what options exist for the future.
And we've tried and we've tried and we've tried. And I'm going to tell you this, if they lose that USMCA deal as well, there's a deal waiting for Alberta as soon as we gain our independence. Trump already made it clear, and people on the independent side have made it clear, we want a non-tariff free trade with the United States. And that's originally what he tried to offer Mark Carney, but Mark Carney wanted to protect his monopolies. Where are we a year later? Absolutely nowhere. We've actually taken steps away from the United States and the USMCA.
And literally every single thing that happens, both internally with the technical recession and geopolitically with the USMCA deal, with everything that's been stalled, all the projects, everything that can move forward because of Canada, it's just better and better reasons for Alberta to become independent and for people to start seeing and saying, okay, well, now I see the issue, because every single day there's a new issue popping up.
We've already tried it their way. And even when we have a premier like Danielle Smith who thinks she can get it done, she can't get it done. The CPP still stays in Canadian coffers. And because those are assets on the Canadian accounting books, they're never going to give it to Alberta, because then they'll be in a permanent recession, at least fiscally, by the numbers. Let's go into the next two articles. They're interrelated here.
Holly Doan says, quote,
I thought these were the big articles of the day, by the way.
Holly Doan says, quote, social media posts deemed to undermine social stability, whatever that means, there is none in Canada, would be subject to blocking orders by a federal censor under Bill C-34, introduced yesterday. The law applies as soon as it comes into force. So great. Oh, there's no video.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Let's go right into the next one, because there is a video for that one, and it's going to explain this more in detail and how this works with other bills. All three of these bills are coming down, and they're going to give the federal government massive amounts of power. I'm not going to be surprised if Alberta independence is the first target on their list.
C-63 is back, but worse, says Northern Perspective. Mark Carney's Orwellian Bill C-34 lets government agents enter, quote, any place, access computer systems, take documents, or anything, all under a new Digital Safety Commission tied to online speech.
The Commission may designate as inspectors persons or classes of persons that the Commission considers qualified for the purposes of verifying compliance or preventing non-compliance with this Act. An inspector may, if authorized by a warrant issued under subsection 79, enter any place for a purpose relating to verifying compliance or preventing non-compliance with this Act. Duty to assist. The owner or person in charge of the place and every person in the place must give all assistance that is reasonably required to enable the inspector to exercise their powers to perform their duties and functions under this section, and must provide any document, information, or any other thing that is reasonably required for that purpose.
This is frightening, because right now, if a business, let's say Northern Perspective, we're a business, let's say we're doing something totally illegal and the police want access to it. They need a warrant. They can't just charge into my house and take all my computers unless they have a warrant.
This is going to lead to warrantless search and seizures, not just this bill. They're going to go into it in just a moment. These are how these censorship bills are being enacted one after another and how they piggyback off each other to give massive amounts of power to the federal government to do warrantless searches and seizures.
Basically, just get naked as soon as they knock on the door.
Well, and even if they did, they're the police. They're separate from the government. They're technically an independent body. This is not.
No, this is essentially a crown corporation.
This is a government agency, okay? This is vastly different. So what we're understanding from this bill is they're effectively able to deputize people to be able to carry out investigations, go anywhere they wish, take anything they wish, inspect anything they wish. And even though they say they should have consent before getting in, a few sections down, there's the duty to comply. So you have Bill C9 that creates the offenses, you have Bill C22 that actually creates the access, and Bill C34 that creates a new government agency with government inspectors that can actually come into your house and take anything that they want. And then that goes back, and then you may be subject to a hate crime as a result of all of that. This is terrifying.
This is like straight out of 1984.
This, and I'm not being a conspiracy theorist when I say this. This is literally setting up the Ministry of Truth and creating the thought police.
Don't answer your door is what's going to come down to.
Yeah.
Thank God we're already outside of the country. We fled BC a couple of years ago, and just specifically for this reasons, we know we're talking truth to power. We know that we're supporting freedom causes, and we have been for the last 4 years. I wasn't going to stop it just because we left Canada. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to be able to say whatever the hell I want. I shouldn't have to be policing myself, or worse, have someone come in and police for me and search and seizure without even having to tell me why or what they're looking for.
Well, this is just a random government agency. This isn't even the police. This isn't even this is a step not just too far, but a mile too far.
Mm-hmm. But now we'll go into your comments and then into Alberta politics. Glenn Gunn says, nothing is over. Stop listening to mainstream media.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say about those last two posts was there's no other target on the playing board right now except for Alberta independence. I would expect them to go hard and heavy inside Alberta with those new laws.
Gives them a great excuse. But yeah, Glenn Gunn says nothing is over. Stop listening to mainstream media. No, nothing is over. And again, what mainstream media does very often, and what we continue to see, and with the headlines that I'm seeing that they're publishing about Alberta independence and what they're saying, yes, they want people to think it's over and that there's no hope and it's a lost cause because they want it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Essentially, they come out and say, oh, this is happening. So more and more people believe that that is happening. So then they start acting or reacting to that and stop whatever behavior or thing they want to stop. Silverfeet says, tickets so expensive, Shane Mom had to sell hers. That was a huge virtue signal. Then she did end up watching it somewhere where it was completely a private event, not open to the public. But essentially, she was scared because this is our third World Cup here in Mexico City. And we've also had the Olympics twice, I think, or once maybe. I think it was twice. And during those, funnily enough, big political events had just happened beforehand. And all of the presidents that were there during those times and during those big events were booed, essentially. And right now, the situation is at the point where I don't even think she would just be booed. She would be forcefully probably removed by the people themselves because we're seeing the protests going to the stadium already. So she did this whole scheme where she wanted to give it to a girl, specifically a girl, because it has to be a feminist thing, that was very enthusiastic about football.
What are you talking about?
Her ticket.
Oh, the ticket. Okay.
So she ended up essentially giving it to an Indigenous girl that is on her way to become like this big footballer. And then she made this big, huge deal about it. But it was because she didn't want to be booed in the stands. Rage Against Machine says, let's not forget about how China has been bribing our politicians. We know it's happening. Where are the names promised?
The hooks are in deep, and Carney is trying to use Orange Man Bad as the excuse to pivot all of Canada into China's arms. Mm-hmm. And he's already done that ideologically with the way he's going after free speech with the last two articles we just showed.
Yeah. Todd asks, did y'all hear there was a Toronto police officer lost in the line of duty this morning? Yes, and our condolences going to his family. We will talk about it more tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit more information tomorrow, so I wanted to wait just a little bit.
Glenn Gunn says, Trump ain't dumb, neither is Carney. These two elites will make sure that at the end of the day, they come out on top.
Yeah, I don't know if Carney's going to come out on top with his wallet because all of his investments are in the United States, but his country's not going to come out on top, and that's a big problem for the tens of millions of people that live in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Gunn says, pay $2,000 to watch soccer, rather watch paint dry. I'm also not that big into soccer.
Well, I'm big into UFC, boxing, things like that, but I don't like going to the live events. It's hard to see. I prefer to watch it on TV. It's like having better than a front row seat. The UFC White House is this Saturday. I cleared my day for that thing.
Justin JP says, hi, folks, playing catch up at 2 times speed. Thank you so much. Hello, Jess. Thank you for being here. If you already got to this point. Hold on, where are we? Glenn says, only the recent immigrants of Canada love FIFA. The rest of us watch hockey. And yeah, and it's fine for each country to like their own sport. They don't have to shove it down people's throats like they're trying to do in Vancouver and elsewhere within Canada. Here we do like it, so it's fine. But now let's go, now let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Let's start with the Globe and Mail. It says, quote, opinion, seniors are the largest, fastest growing homeless population in Canada. It's a collective shame upon our country.
This is absolutely heartbreaking. And we used to live right by there, I believe. I believe that's the pub entrance over by Skid Row. This is absolutely heartbreaking. And the fact that a lot of these seniors are on CPP and that's their only income coming in, and Mark Carney gambles with it, investing $100 billion in India through the CPP is absolutely ridiculous. Alberta needs to get back a hold of their money at an absolute minimum. Daniela Smith promised that. She's failed to deliver that time and time again.
And also seeing how seniors are being treated, again, being offered MAID, being offered any other solution rather than medical aid, for example, if they need it, but also help. And the society itself crumbling upon itself and not caring about each other anymore. And that is something I did notice a lot when we were in Canada. But also the fact that a lot of people that are now reaching senior age got duped into thinking that the CPP mechanism was going to forever help them. But now we're seeing the population pyramid be completely upside down. So now we have more seniors and we have young people even contributing to the CPP, Alberta being one of the biggest contributors anyways, and not being able to get out as much as they should be able to. But that whole scheme, that whole social services scheme is now collapsing because of the policies that the politicians themselves decided to enact.
It doesn't have to be this way. No. We need to put our seniors and our citizens first. Stop giving $86,000 to refugees and migrants. Nobody gets anything until the citizens get everything.
Mm-hmm. But next, I think he put it really great. Table Salt says, quote, financial experts saying the Canadian economy died by cancer, not a heart attack. It was a long-term rot. And it continues, again, to grow and metastasize. I like that he's using that analogy because I use that all the time.
We're up here talking about whether or not it's a recession or not, where the bigger problem is, look, an economy can die many different ways. And when you look at a recession, that's an economy is dying by a heart attack. That's what C.D. Howe was saying. And I'm saying to you, the economy has died through cancer, long-term rot, okay? And up here, we've got to sit there and be honest with ourselves.
It's time to cut out the cancer, and that cancer is Mark Carney and these liberal policies. But even after we get rid of Mark Carney, the judiciary is absolutely cancerous within Canada as well. They had the same mechanisms of control within Central and South America, and the only countries that were able to succeed are the super majorities that got in with conservatives that were able to clear out the judiciary. So,
and a lot of that came thanks to Nayib Bukele and essentially spelling it out for everybody, saying if you want to fix a country, the first thing you have to do is get rid of the corrupt judiciary and the corrupt judges. Yeah. Otherwise, you can't move forward or do really anything about it.
Well, and we see how the system has been flipped on its head. Yeah. Power is supposed to lie at the local level and provincial level. The federal government is supposed to do very little. They've absolutely reversed that system. The federal government has so much overreach right now. They want to be in every part of your life and have control over every part of your life.
And it's because the system itself that governs Canada allows that to happen. There are no mechanisms to prevent that. And if there were, well, then they were bypassed and now the corruption has completely seeped through. But as I always say, Canada is the cancer that continues to try and metastasize into little Alberta, Alberta can still cut itself out and become its own independent nation and get away from all of this and start actually becoming what Canada was promising for so many years to be. Because we already see what happened, the mechanisms that got it to this point, and the errors, and now we can fix them. But if we stay, we can't fix them.
National Conservatives need to stop waiting the 3 years for a Pierre Poilievre that may never come. He may get ousted before that. Even if that election goes, too many Conservatives may have left Canada. There might not be that critical mass of individuals. We can make a change right now. National Conservatives need to get behind Alberta independence so we can pressure the federal government to open up the Constitution and make radical change here.
But also because, for example, Greg Wycliffe says, quote, Immigration Minister Lena Diab is asked about violent criminals not being deported from Canada, and she starts twitching, trying to answer, because there is no answer.
For Kitchener Center.
A woman in my riding who immigrated in 2020. After she separated from her husband, he strangled her in front of their daughter, and he was found guilty. He remains in Canada, free, without a valid work permit, illegally. How does this minister allow violent criminals who have no legal status to remain in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Serious offences like this deserve serious consequences, and the Immigration Act does not include anything on special treatment or leniency for the...
There has been no action. She was strangled. He did it, and he allegedly has no legal status. Why does this minister not hold these people accountable and remove them from Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, public safety is the paramount important thing in Canada. It's the courts, judges, they are the ones who apply the law.
And she's twitching more than Christina Freeland here. That being said, the girl asking the questions isn't very passionate about it, but she's asking the right questions, and she keeps asking the right questions, which really puts this lady on the hot seat and puts the Liberals on the hot seat here.
And literally, Diab just said, it's up to the judiciary, it's up to the courts. Exactly. Why aren't they being instructed properly? And why is this not being actually mitigated?
Member.
If public safety is so incredibly important, why does he remain in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, criminals are deported by CBSA after sentencing occurs. If they are sentenced appropriately, action is taken.
Honourable Member.
If criminals are deported, why is he not deported?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Chair, again, can't speak to any specific case because that is not my role to do here tonight. What I can say and reconfirm that serious crime deserves serious consequences.
Honourable Member.
I'll be sure to tell her that you can't speak on her specific case as the Minister of Immigration for Canada. What message did this minister sending to women and other women like her when she does not protect them within her own system?
If I recognize the Minister, members are required to speak through the chair when using you, just to be careful. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Immigration Refugees Protection Act does not include anything on this type of treatment. We treat all offences seriously. CBSA deports individuals as needed. Thank you.
Member.
If these cases are treated seriously, why does he remain free without a valid permit to terrorize her in Canada?
And they're not treated seriously. And the reason they're not treated seriously, and we know that, is they're giving lighter sentences so people aren't being deported. Specifically, we've gone over this over and over again. It's good to see them tighten the bolts right here in Parliament.
Why is he in Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. If there is a non-Canadian in Canada that has committed an offence, Canada Border Services Agency will investigate if they have other reasons. I would suggest the provincial policing partners as well as...
Will she at least talk to them?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, serious crime deserves serious consequences. CBSA investigates all these cases and takes appropriate action.
Honourable Member.
Is she serious? She won't talk to them?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, Canada Border Services Agency, as my colleague, the Public Safety, said today, have removed over 23,000 inadmissible people last year.
Honourable Member.
I'll be sure to take those stats to the woman in my writing. She now lives in a domestic violence shelter with her child, while he remains working here illegally and free without consequence. Is that acceptable to her as a parliamentarian, as a mother, as a woman?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. No crime is acceptable, regardless of the degree of the crime.
Then why doesn't she talk to the minister and take care of this?
Minister.
you, Mr. Chair. Again, Canada Border Services Agency. And
Okay, you can leave it there. And she goes into her pre-canned answers. And she kept trying to go back to her pre-canned answers. But good on the Conservative for really asking the right questions and keep asking the right questions so we can get those answers on camera, which are non-answers at best.
And also made it very obvious that both the bureaucracy, but also the courts and judges themselves, because they're the ones that decide. And CBSA is the one that investigates. It's not up to me. I know nothing. All of that mechanism is what allows the rot to continue, what allows the corruption and them to be able to rule by ideology, essentially, to still function within the country, in a country that they shouldn't even be allowed to do that anymore because the population has realized where this leads, but still.
Yeah, and we really need to keep an eye on the EU and for Alberta independence to really shine a microscope on what's happening in the EU starting tomorrow. The floodgates open for immigration. The UN takes control of the immigration policies for dozens of countries within the EU tomorrow. Ireland is one of those countries. There's a major pushback going on there. That could be an absolute tinder fire. So,
and again, we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but with the situation that just happened in Toronto, I'm guessing that could also help spark similar fires within Canada. Lastly, Royce Lopez says, I keep hearing how great Sikhs are supposed to be, but they keep doing things like this. I think people should be able to carry a ceremonial AK-47.
Go ahead.
He was waiting for a long time.
Okay. We talked to the guy over there. He told us he's coming here and he followed.
Doesn't matter.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Who was waiting?
Go ahead. You're the traffic police. Go ahead.
Moving or not?
Wait me to call 911.
Okay. Nobody's there.
No, you just assaulted.
Make a movie.
I am. You can. That's the police.
okay, and you can leave it there. And this being said, we need to have tight immigration policies so we know who we're letting into the country, because what we don't want to do is let people from countries in that are going to be violent, commit violent crimes. Why don't we want those people in? Because we want the ability to carry firearms and knives ourselves. If we start complaining, well, why does he have a knife? Then they're going to take everybody's knives and they're going to take everybody's firearms and they're going to restrict everybody's freedoms. That's what comes down when you have conflict like this. That's why tight immigration is important, so we don't start stripping our own freedoms in order to protect ourselves.
That is why within Western civilization, a lot of the freedoms and liberties that we fought for and then instituted did work, because we were within high trust societies. However, when we get people that are not used to those from low trust societies, and I say this coming from Mexico, it doesn't work, because again, you can't restrict if you want to allow freedom, but you also cannot enforce if you want to have that high trust society. So you're in a catch-22 that we're now seeing evolve and unfold in Europe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, hold on. Thank you so much to Christu. Thank you so much for the $5 Rumble rant, saying free Polish lesson. Tommy the Commie's name is read Łukaszuk, accent on cash. Łukaszuk. Thank you for the free Polish lesson, Christu, and for the $5 Rumble rant.
Yeah.
But now let's go to the rest of your comments and then to Alberta Personalities. Yes. Where are we? Because I lose myself within the comments, because then a lot of you are commenting. So thank you so much. Rage Against Machine says we will adopt the US dollar immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't want to stay permanently fixed to the US dollar. I would love to see going to 100% gold standard, where you can trade in any Albertan dollars you have for gold at the bank at any time you want.
Glenn Gunn says Alberta's boardwalk and never be traded because Park Place is Saskatchewan. Anybody catch that reference? Monopoly. And Glenn also says basketball sucks too. I agree with that one.
Yeah. And the amount of ideology coming into mass sports now is just absolutely ridiculous. UFC seems to be one of the sports that's free from it. Even if it's not free and somebody brings up politics, they're gonna solve it in the ring anyway. So it's good to watch.
Mm-hmm. Todd says all products from China are in our landfill within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And yet we want to continue to import them because they're the only ones that apparently we will bend to, no matter what. Glenn Gunn says, talk about the AI center in Grand Prairie area with $7 billion funding with Kevin O'Leary. Sorry, not Keith.
Yeah, there's a major crash going on in the Chinese economy right now. We're going to get into that when we go into Alberta and the World. A lot of the new fiscal numbers came out. So if Canada's thinking they're going to pivot to the Chinese market. And the Chinese, I believe, have been lying about their demographic stats for a long time. Their market isn't as big as it looks, number one. And most people are living in poverty still to this day in China. So they're not consumers. There are a small demographic of consumers within China, but that demographic is getting smaller and smaller, especially with the new numbers coming out.
Yeah. Todd says, yeah, I can't watch baseball either. Too slow. And also says curling gets nasty when they touch after the line. We saw it during the Olympics. I mean, who knew it could be so exciting? Where are we? John B says the Republic of Alberta and the United States could have a deal. I don't see why not. Probably tariff-free trade with Alberta and the U.S.
Yeah, they're ideologically aligned, and the U.S. says they want to have deals with ideologically aligned partners. They give sweetheart deals to countries that are aligned with them, like El Salvador, like Argentina, like Alberta. If it ever actually gets its independence, it will be like night and day when it comes to the USMCA.
Pete Griswold says, we are still listening, Nat and Guy. Did we go out or?
Oh, I don't know.
It seems like people can still hear us because they're still commenting. But let us know if the sound is fine.
No, it's fine over here on my phone.
Pete Griswold also says, fun fact, 90 to 99% of our Teslas in Canada are Chinese made compared to the US, where they are 100% American made. Anyone else seeing a problem with this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is the problem. That is the problem.
And let's go into Alberta Personalities because there's only one story there, and then we'll get right back to comments.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And yes, let's start with Tamara Litch saying, quote, I've spent more time in jail than this guy. What did this guy do? BUAC says, quote, and anyone remember when immigrant Vincent Wei Guangli took someone's head off Tim McLean on a bus in front of everyone and then started eating him? He now goes by Will Baker, and he's likely your neighbor because he was granted freedom. Apparently, quote, a man with schizophrenia who took someone's head off a bus passenger in Canada in 2008 has been granted freedom. Great.
Yeah, and it's scary that Tamara Litch has been spent more time in jail than this guy. This is absolutely ridiculous. And this goes right back into the post that we were just talking about when they were questioning the Liberals in Parliament about what's going on with these light sentences. Why are these people out on the street? I remember when I first moved back to Canada from the United States after living there for a while, I needed a roommate. That roommate I ended up getting ended up stabbing somebody 37 times. And then he ended up getting 2 years probation for it. And the other guy ended up dying. Absolutely ridiculous. The kind of things that are happening here.
Oh, hold on. But there in the photo caption, it says, in an interview in 2012, Mr. Baker said he was really sorry for what he had done. Does he understand what he did? He has schizophrenia. And again, you have the chance to move away from this cancer, to not live like this, to not continue down this ideological, political path that Canada will just be on because it's convenient for those in power and for those career politicians that have built themselves up on that, including people like Pierre Poilievre or anybody within the Conservative Party that just benefits from attaining more power. You have the ability to cut yourself off from that.
We're trying to draw a line in the sand saying there's a difference between Canada and Alberta culturally, politically, economically, everything here. It's like night and day what we're looking at. What we need to start doing is on these little battles with Alberta independence, we need to dig our heels in and not take one step back. We keep taking a step back and the timeline keeps getting expanded. We need to start shortening that timeline. Number one, by not taking any steps backwards, but starting to step forward and shorten that timeline. After October 19th, we're going to have to really activate some mechanisms to bring it from 2.5 to 3 years down to 6 to 12 months.
But now back into your comments and then into Alberta's Canada. Todd says, yep, designed to demoralize us all because you're easier to control once you've been demoralized and think you can't enact any kind of change.
Yeah.
Glenn Gunn says, that conservative woman was once homeless. She is a cool gal. Oh,
I didn't know that.
Cool. That is cool. Rage Against Machine says, watch out around these bastards. They will attack you. Never let your guard down around people. I will have to say, because you do.
Well, and this is why having firearms in public with a well-trained and high-trust society is important, because you can stop a lot of these crimes. Very often when somebody's going to assault you or do a crime to you, there's no way to stop it, especially if you're a woman or something like that. All you can do is call the police after the fact.
Mm-hmm. John B says, think of this. If Alberta was free, I'm sure that Elon would build Tesla plants in Alberta, but oil is the way to go. For now, at least. Yeah. Pete Griswold says, and a launching pad that's not over budget and doesn't look like an average Montreal street. The little toy red rocket. Yes, Carney's red rocket. Pete Griswold says, I would prefer a Canadian Tesla factory over Chinese spy cars any day of the week. And yet now you're getting a bunch of imported Chinese cars that, again, they've started to explode now here in Mexico. We've been having them for about 5 to 10 years now since they come in. And now we continue to see stories about them exploding in the streets.
Yeah, they in the beginning they were good here, but now people are waking up after they've had these vehicles for a certain amount of time. They're just not good vehicles.
No. And again, you never know what's within those computers, what they're being used for, and what kind of information and data you're handing over to these companies that are essentially just managed by the CPP.
Well, and there's no real repair centers.
CCP.
There's no real repair centers or anything like that as well, because all the infrastructure is based in China.
Mm-hmm. And John B says, America is starting to make our own stuff again. Alberta needs to do the same. I could also see a bunch of high-tech chip factories up in Alberta.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. As soon as Alberta gets its independence, it's going to be a manufacturing hub. Typically, Ottawa takes all the manufacturing out of Alberta, make sure it's placed in Ottawa by having favorable regulations for Ottawa and Quebec and not Alberta, yet they leverage all of Western Canada and their natural resources to make sure they get concessions from the United States from that East Coast manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Once Alberta gets its independence, that manufacturing will actually exist within Alberta, no longer in Ottawa.
And Rob Schlaw, hello, thank you for being here, says PP, or Pierre Poilievre, is crashing out in the polls data, even from conservative paid pollsters. Glenn Gunn says so is Carney. Both of them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The NDP is actually coming up, and they have a communist for a leader, and their policies are very far left. It looks like a lot of the Liberals are disenfranchised with Carney. They don't want to go to the Conservative Party. So the NDP seems to be the big winner here, which is crazy because they're the most far left of all the parties.
Pete Griswold says, and I will read this one, Pete, because I didn't yesterday, and I apologize, says, now listen, I'm not a bot, but crypto is replacing the gold standard slowly but surely. Might as well get informed.
Yeah, but there also is a lot of cryptocurrencies or digital currencies that are combining with gold, where you can take your cryptocurrency and exchange it for gold. A lot of the BRICS is actually based upon that, and they have gold safes all around the world, so you can exchange your digital currency at any point you want for actual physical gold, and that's a good way to build trust into a digital currency.
And last one, Rob Schlaw says, Carney is still strong. He's negotiating major trade deals with Europe, and PP is just a crybaby with no solutions. Both of them, I would say, have no solutions. And the ones that they do have are worrying. And Smiles to Life every day. Hello. I'm guessing you were trying to say hi, everyone. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Oh, here it is. Good evening, Nat and Guy, and everyone. Thank you for being here. Smile to Life every day. But now let's go into Alberta's Canada, speaking of both of those people.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
Let's start with Wayne saying, quote, they told you. World Economic Forum says, quote, welcome to 2030. I own nothing and have no privacy, and life has never been better.
They wrote, leave this up here. They wrote multiple articles on this. This wasn't some fringe article. This was all over the place. Everybody knows the slogan, and it's because they talked about it at Davos again and again and again at the World Economic Forum, in all kinds of published papers. This was the headlines. We need to get out of Canada because Canada is tip of the spear for this ideology. We need to get out of there before 2030. We need to get out now. That's why Alberta independence is so important before the gates close on us.
And as Bill C34 and all the rest continue to come in, let us know if life has ever been better and if you feel great having nothing, no privacy, and
yeah, you'll have no privacy. And we just talked about that earlier on in the episode. They're coming and they don't need warrants anymore for any of this thing. They'll just seize your computer randomly.
And it's funny that for the longest time, it was all, oh, that's just conspiracy theories. That's not happening. They would never do that. Well, now we're there. Now we all actually have the proof. And them trying to push this through and telling you why it's such a good idea. Ellie Kenton Nantel says, quote, I spent 24 hours in Canada's most violent city. Winnipeg, Manitoba has a violent crime rate of 675 per 100,000 people. That's higher than Detroit and St. Louis. While there, I saw one of the most shocking things of my journalistic career.
Yeah, and Winnipeg has always been the most violent city in Canada, or always in the top.
Tonight, a surge of violence in Winnipeg so bad, even police are alarmed.
The Winnipeg Major Police Crime Unit is investigating multiple stabbings that happened in the north end of the city.
Breaking news in Winnipeg. Police are investigating a mass shooting.
This is Winnipeg, Manitoba, a city of more than 800,000 people in the heart of Canada with a rich history, freezing winters, and passionate hockey fans, but also a city that has become known for violence, stabbings, shootings, drugs, gangs, and homeless encampments, with the city having the most violent crime rate in Canada.
This guy just started spraying bear spray to everybody randomly.
But just how bad is the situation on the ground?
There's a lot of violence here. It just seems like there's no end in sight.
My name is Ellie. I'm a journalist with a decade of experience in politics, and recently I flew to Winnipeg to spend 24 hours in Canada's most violent city to investigate and find out what is really going on. I interviewed residents, victims of violent crime, people who fled the city
Okay,
because
and you
of
can
the
leave
crime.
it there. And this is a great opportunity to actually try out policing that works. And if it can work in Winnipeg, it will work in the rest of the country, because Winnipeg is far more violent than any other city in Canada.
And again, it might be statistically the worst one, but doesn't that look exactly like every single other city, big city, that we already complain about and talk about all the time, like Vancouver, but like Calgary and Edmonton as well?
Yeah, but it's the amount of violent crimes that are happening.
No, I know. But yes, thank you so much to Smile to Life every
Thank
day
you.
for the $5 super chat saying, great news, overpass over Queai in Innisfall, now named after rodeo legend Jack Danes.
Oh, fantastic.
Good. And especially as the Calgary Stampede
Oh,
comes closer and closer. But lastly, oh God, let's move to BC now. Closely, Marizalaya says, quote, oh, my bad. I thought our two official languages were English and French. Alberta, run away from this insanity.
God, and they'll be putting in Punjab and Chinese and every other language
They already
based,
have them in those
based upon what community it is soon.
That already happens in Richmond and Surrey.
They're not for stop signs.
What does a stop sign tell us to do? Well, a stop sign, panuch, means a full cessation of movement of your wheels. You have to stop behind the stop sign or the stop line. Hi, this is Sergeant Martins with the Delta Police, Tsawwassen First Nation Service Team. We're stopping because we want to keep people safe in the community. The stop sign is a universal sign for stop. The Motor Vehicle Act recognizes this stop sign is written in Hokamino. When you're
Well, rather than demanding people know English so they can take a DMV test and know a basic sign, I mean, a stop sign is obvious even without the words. The stop sign I liked is the stickers they were putting on there that said stop immigration.
Yeah.
driving on Tsawwassen lands, just remember to stop, keep the community safe.
Just sounds like he's sneezing. I'd say bless you, but I don't really want to bless those kinds of ideals, so no. Let's go back to your comments and then into Alberta and the world, because there are quite a few things happening in the world as of always. I was going to say as of late, but as of always. Glengun says, you should move to Pakistan and have a great life. Not sure who you mean, if you were talking to somebody else or to whoever it was we were talking about. Now, I keep getting lost with all the comments. I'm sorry. John B says, Pierre doesn't impress me. He's never going to be prime minister. He's had opportunities to even try to convince most of us. And right now, for as much complaining and as much highlighting the things that are wrong within Canada that he does, he still wants us to wait 3 years for him and say, no, you can't move or do anything without me at the helm, because I want to be I'm the future prime minister and I will lead you to whatever victory or whatever I claim to want to lead you to, but no.
I'm done trying to vote harder and wait for Pierre Poilievre. I'm gonna vote for the citizens of Alberta to make that change, and for the citizens of Canada to rise up. If they're not willing to rise up on their own and they're gonna put all their hope and wishes in a politician, that's not the path anymore.
Mm-hmm. Pete says, Really, after Carney and Brookfield bailed out Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, with the 666 Avenue building, seems to me that Carney is secretly in love with Trump. Well, he did say, let's make America great again.
Well, and again, Alberta could save the rest of Canada just by setting the example of we don't need politicians. We're going to do it ourselves. It's time for the citizens to rise up and stop playing these games with politicians. They're part of a uniparty. It doesn't seem like real change will ever come through this political system that's rotten to the core and broken.
So if it says BC changed knowledge driving tests to virtual so you can do it at home.
Oh my God.
Great. Just how you can get your citizenship at home. You can get your passport. You don't have to go anywhere, essentially. You could be somewhere in India and be getting your BC driver's license, your passport, and becoming a Canadian citizen, all without leaving the comfort of your home in India. And then coming over and just starting to live there without really learning or knowing how to do anything. I mean, already the system for driver's licenses within BC was already incredibly corrupt. That's why we continue to see cars ending up on stairs or on the beach somewhere or on the seawall in Stanley Park. And yet now they're making it even easier for people to skirt around it. Dad Robinson, hello, says hi, Nat and Guy. Smash the like button, everyone. And thank you.
Thank you.
It really helps. And Satius Maximus, thank you for being here. Says, made it. Hey, yes, you did.
Oh,
Thank
fantastic.
you for being here. Rob Schlaw says, PP lost his own writing. He's a clown. Oh, yes, he is.
Well, and now he's back stumping on the ground in Alberta against Alberta independence, against the people in his own riding. Absolutely ridiculous. And there's a reason his poll numbers are going down. It's because the independence vote in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and other parts of the country are just not having it anymore. We're going to do it ourselves. We're not going to wait 3 years.
But now let's go into Alberta and the world.
Yeah.
And starting with Jane Rochford Boleyn. Oh, interesting last name. Says, quote, they are massing because on Friday, the 12th of June.
Stop here. Let's read this slowly and fairly clearly. It's less about the actual clip here, and it's more about what's written here. This is coming into effect tomorrow. This is going to affect the EU massively. There's they have a lot of things on social media and censorship coming in the next few days as well, because they do not want this getting out to the world.
So they are massing because on Friday, the 12th of June, the European Union Migration Pact comes into force. This means that EU countries will be forced to accept a quota of violent, super aggressive foreign men. Were celebrating just last week. As a woman, I find this terrifying. I think anybody in Europe should find it terrifying.
And this is why you don't want to give your sovereignty up. Countries gave their sovereignty up to the EU, and now they're paying for it. They're going to be absolutely flooded with illegal migrants here to such an
legal too.
Yeah, to a different extent than we've ever seen before. I mean, this will be Canada's future if we don't wake up here. Alberta has a chance to say no. Let's draw the red line in the sand. Let's interlock arms with other Albertans and say we don't no longer want to be part of Canada.
But literally could be Canada's future, because again, they continue to say how much they want to join the European Union, and they continue to make excuses as to how they could actually enact that and do it.
And again, this is coming into effect tomorrow. This is absolutely massive in the EU. The clip's not really important. It was more what was written up top.
Migration quotas in the EU starting tomorrow. More migration quotas.
قاعد انزلت وينكم هنا انتم معنا اصل فيكم ما بيقبلها يا اخي المعنى صحح هنا انزل فات الجايه دينا قالوا الشهره وقالوا الخينا قلنا الفكره دي كيف تتبنى.
Again, we already know that, for example, within Spain, they just regularized 500,000 migrants without even doing full background checks or anything.
The EU's been preparing for this for a while, much like when Biden was in office and the NGOs were funded all the way up through Mexico to get people to the U.S. border, and there was infrastructure built so they can get millions of migrants across Mexico. There are millions of migrants waiting to go into the EU tomorrow, so it's going to be very interesting.
More, because there's already millions coming in via boats without being fully vetted, and being fully vetted, being ignored, whatever ties they might have, and still let into the country.
Now they're going to be fully legalized, and a legal migrant is extremely hard to get out of the country. And that's why when you see a lot of these articles within the EU saying, oh, we're going to get rid of illegal migrants, they've changed the definition of what illegal and legal migrant is. They've broadened out what a legal migrant is. So it's going to be almost impossible for the EU to get rid of these immigrants, especially when there's multiple levels of governance from the EU to the UN to your own country.
blah, blah, blah. Well, I was going to continue going about down the levels, but we're also seeing that at least in Belfast and in Northern Ireland, there was finally something that did spark.
This was a funny clip. I absolutely love this clip here.
But yes, it's the Belfast police trying to arrest someone and...
Six cops escorting one kid, and these were kids that were involved in those protests the other day. 6 of them. Only 2 of them bothered to even try to run. That kid got away, definitely. Good on him for getting away there, I guess.
But again, that's the quality of policing.
Yeah.
And they want those police also to try to not even go after, but if they ever do try to go after the ones that are perpetrating the most heinous crimes on their own on the population.
Yeah, let's go into the next article.
Peter St. Ong says, quote, "The Chinese miracle just hit a wall with, quote,
no, did you? Oh, no, never mind. Okay.
Shockingly bad numbers with some of the worst in 20 years. China tried to central plan their way to number 1. Canada, listen up, it's turning into Japan, bust with zeros."
China just turned in, quote, "shockingly bad economic numbers. Has Donald Trump killed the Chinese miracle?" Last week, China reported some of the slowest growth in decades, with investment collapsing, retail sales the slowest since COVID, and industrial production slowing sharply. Exports slowed, car sales crashed 15%. The results were worse than every economist in Bloomberg's survey predicted. And note, these are official statistics. Every China watcher assumes reality is always worse than Beijing admits. Every time I say China's got problems, I get a chorus of China boosters complaining. By the way, there's a name for these in Chinese, Zigangwu Volunteer 50 Cent Army, as in they promote the government without needing to get paid. So for the 50 Cent Army, I freely admit China has an impressive business environment with much less BS and red tape. Chinese companies don't have to pay for gender transitions. They're free to use coal. They don't get sued for $80 million for hot coffee. They're better at infrastructure, especially compared to California. The streets are safe, crime's low. China's education system puts us to shame. Having said, it is not all sunshine and puppies in the Middle Kingdom. Huge swaths of the Chinese economy are centrally planned, starting with 400,000 communist-style state-owned enterprises, actually 900,000 including part-owned, which employ 50 to 60 million people. That's roughly half the labor force of America. Even worse is the trillions China dumps into so-called industrial policy, choosing industries and businesses to give free money when Chinese bureaucrats, like bureaucrats everywhere, have no idea what they're doing. This has led to tremendous overcapacity in 2 specific areas, housing and manufacturing, which together make up half of the Chinese economy. Both are now going through epic purges, with tens of millions of empty houses being liquidated, the famous ghost cities, taking down dozens of massive developers, just one of which was liquidated with $300 billion in debt. For perspective, that's half of Lehman Brothers, which set off the 2008 crisis, and that was just one developer. It's even worse in manufacturing, where decades of cheap government loans overbuilt everything in China. To give a sense, pre-COVID, China had 500 electric car makers. Almost 400 have gone bust, leaving 129, of which just 4 are profitable. Now, normally all this gets purged by a recession, but in China's case, Beijing just keeps dumping fresh stimulus, kicking the can trillion by trillion. But with Chinese debt now approaching 300% of GDP, it's actually higher than America, China is out of runway. Enter Trump's tariffs, which hit 1/5 of China's manufacturing exports, cutting sales by $100 billion a year. Rough, if almost everybody was already losing money. China responded by dumping to the rest of the world, Europe, Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia. Bloomberg recently reported brand new Chinese jeans going for $1 in Jakarta. Shipping alone's got to be most of that. The dumping is already getting massive blowback. Europe, India, Brazil, and Mexico have all proposed new tariffs on Chinese exports. Even Canada, which has otherwise been suspiciously friendly to China. So as next brought to you by the Bitcoin Way.
And Trump is putting a lot of pressure on Canada. I think we're talking about that tomorrow, and they're all of a sudden, overnight, they're willing to make a change. They're only willing to make a change when there's real consequences, and Trump puts real consequences on them.
But again, as Peter St. Ong there at the end was saying, interestingly, Canada does continue to be surprised and trying to tie more and more of the economy, Canadian economy that is also failing, to China, which again, while on the surface it may look really good, at least for the longest time, now the cracks are finally beginning to show, like their buildings that could just
There
continue
is
to
a
collapse.
lot of reform that has to come into the United States and other Western cultures. He named a bunch of them there. Regulations are massively holding a lot of these countries back. That being said, they're in a much better position, I believe, than China. We'll have to kind of wait and see. I know there's a huge debate on this issue.
And lastly, just for the state of the world, Sal Grover says, quote, if you're asking biological related questions about how safe it is for a biological male to take drugs in order to lactate to feed a baby, and I cannot believe we're having this conversation, then that person says you're vilifying me. Gender ideology gets even more insane.
Well, and again, let's just remember, in Canada, they're going to start banning anybody that's under 16 from Facebook and social media. Yet you can make massive life-changing decisions before you're even 18 in Canada, which is ridiculous.
This is important because if you're asking questions, biological related questions about how safe it is for a biological male to take drugs in order to lactate to feed a baby, and I cannot believe we're even having this conversation, but we are, and that person says, well, you're vilifying me, Jasmine Sussex, you are asking, well, okay, you think I'm vilifying you. Show us the evidence that what you are doing is safe.
That's exactly where we are. And so I'm quite concerned about this decision we got out of QCAT a few months ago, saying that what processes this individual had followed are not relevant. What I said is what's relevant because it's vilification. But the problem is, you know, without being too technical about it, so it's only vilification if it's not done reasonably in the public interest, you know, for genuine
you're not criticising or making any comment about this trans woman in any way, shape or form about their appearance or purporting to be a woman or anything. Your comments relate to feeding an infant and is that safe? And what is involved in a woman breastfeeding an infant as opposed to someone that is a biological male taking drugs to feed a child. Now, I ask you, you know, I'm not the expert, you are. How does a man, a biological man, produce enough lactating milk to feed a child?
They don't.
Can they do it? Can they produce enough to feed a child, Jasmine? And is the milk they produce the quality and the volume that you would get from a biological woman?
It's definitely not the volume. It's very unlikely to be the quality, is the short answer.
And she can get arrested for talking about things like this in the EU, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why they're trying to wait Trump out. And if they manage to get a Gavin Newsom or somebody else in there, you're going to see Mark Carney and the rest of the globalists try to make up for lost time here.
Finally, let's merge kind of those stories with what we were looking and talking about Northern Perspective with Bill C-34 and what we brought up yesterday, where I don't remember his name, but this conservative politician brought up the fact that what is a woman? He just asked a biology expert, what is a woman? And they said, oh, we can't discuss that, it's Pride. So we shouldn't be talking about that. You can't ask that question. It's Pride season.
And they shut down the entire question. And he was literally asking that question to a molecular biologist about X and Y chromosomes, and they wouldn't allow the question.
So now let's fix that with Bill C-34, and now with this not even being able to bring this up because now it's being deemed as you're vilifying the person if you're just asking literal biological questions.
A lot of this stuff is laying dormant or just underneath the surface. Again, we need somebody after Trump that's going to continue to push back. Otherwise, we're going to see a major uprise in this stuff.
But now let's finish off with your comments and then head into RUMBLE. Silverfeet says lots of high-rise buildings in Vancouver are going into financial default as well since it's a part of China.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was one of the bigger ones, the one that's by the Burrard Bridge that then flooded, and nobody told the residents that it was flooding and what was going to be done because of how badly constructed it is.
Yeah, when we say flooding, we literally mean a waterfall coming out of the elevator shaft on every single floor.
Sean says, hello, Sean says, I'm an expert about this topic. I hope you're not, and I hope you don't mean the breastfeeding one. But
Well, and they have to take chemicals in order to do that. And so the breast milk that they're actually feeding the child is...
it's not breast milk. It's essentially just pus. Sorry for the disgusting nature of this, but I looked quite a bit into it.
Okay, let's continue on here.
Satius Maximus says, you don't have to convince the opposition. You have to convince the people who don't vote, but like the idea of independence.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even necessarily, we might not even have a hard of a job as convincing people that they need to like independence. If Mark Carney doesn't get this USMCA, it's going to be very obvious to everybody. We need to decouple from Canada now before they fall off the economic cliff and everybody's CPP absolutely disappears because he's gambling with it on the open market.
And with everything else, with the economy itself. Satius Maximus says, share it on X. Thank you so much for sharing it. Pete Griswold says, it could be a Tim Hortons free coffee punch card for all they care. I'm guessing either the passport or anything. Oh, the driver's license. Yeah, that too. God. Troglodyte says, we'll get more into this tomorrow, but Troglodyte says, Zara Jabi, 19 years old, is wanted in connection with the shooting that took the place this morning and left one Toronto police officer deceased. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about tomorrow, and hopefully they'll be able to catch him by tomorrow.
Yes.
If he doesn't flee the country, which is usually the case.
True. Smarts Life Every Day says Alberta is going to be strong and free, and yes, it will, and we'll try to continue to make sure of it. And Smarts Life Every Day also, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying women are always under attack. Oh, yeah. And even if we can't even define what a woman is, the attack is already loud and clear.
You have mass immigration, and then you have you're not allowed to have a firearm to protect yourself in public as a woman. What do you think is going to happen? We need a high trust society that we can trust other individuals with firearms, and we can protect one another.
Pete Griswold says, the new reflecting pool looks awesome. It used to look like a swamp with Shrek swimming in the morning.
Yeah,
it does look really nice.
It does look really good.
Charlotte says at a press conference about the slain police officer, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow said that we're all grieving fellow officers and the families are in our farts. Because she doesn't know how to say hearts.
Olivia Chow is just absolutely insane. She was trying to, well, I have to wait to talk about that on Are You and Bailey.
On Are You and Bailey. Hold on, where are we? Lastly, Sean says, how will Alberta learn how to drive without Canada? And all the people that they just they essentially gift them driver's licenses. Pete Griswold says, it would never be a thing in the US because they have amendments, laws that prevent people from making BS laws like in Canada. I mean, some states have actually allowed them to go pretty hard on some insane rules.
The talking points from the Federalists is absolutely ridiculous. It's too hard to make a government. You have to make a passport office in your own police. And this is all stuff that we want to do for ourselves already. But our politicians keep failing at doing, like Danielle Smith, of getting the CPP back and making it the APP.
Yes. But now let's head into Are You and Bailey so we can actually speak about this last topic and other ones that YouTube doesn't really like. But before you head over there with us, please don't forget to subscribe. Again, it really does help us out. And we'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
30-second Waitscreen, then we'll see you over there.
Let's get ready to